Hi, everybody. Our next panel is on healthcare tech, where to invest, life sciences as well. So we have some amazing panelists, and we also have Mariana, who is an entrepreneur in the space. So we've decided to split the next session into two. First, a general conversation on trends, where to invest and deploy capital, what's hot, where are the risks, with Amit and Rich, and I will let them introduce themselves. And then we'll do an entrepreneur showcase with Mariana so that she can talk about her technology, her venture, as well as about the challenges actually of where to raise capital for hardware and medical devices, and where there might be opportunities for less conventional investors. So without further ado, maybe, Rich, you could start with an introduction, and we will move down on the table.
Hi, everybody. As I said earlier, I'm Rich Gans. I'm a venture partner with Orange Grove Bio. So many people in the room think I'm a venture capitalist. I used to be. I'm not anymore. So for all of you looking for capital, we're probably not the right place to look. But I can give you a little bit more on the Orange Grove story and why I think it's really important to Chicago. So some of you may have seen my spotlight where I talked a little bit about the valley of death in biotech. So it's very common for biotech companies to be able to raise a substantial amount of money after they've proven that a product works in humans. The big gap is the new innovation that's happening in academic medical centers around the country, where somebody comes up with a great idea and has largely done a huge amount of work to propel that idea or that new therapeutic forward, and yet trying to get the work funded or the work necessary to get into the clinic is often a very difficult task. So I've been around the Chicago kind of life sciences ecosystem for quite a while. Some of you know I worked at the University of Chicago as an EIR back in the 2009-ish timeframe. And so Mark, reflecting on yesterday's things that scare me or make me happy, I'm happy that we're having this dialogue today. It scares me that we were having this dialogue in 2009. It hasn't changed a lot. So one of the reasons, though, that I'm excited to be here today is that I think our model has the potential to be transformative. Filling that gap for what happens between preclinical development and actually getting products to patients, I think is really important, and one of the reasons that I joined Orange Grove. So, and let me just try to give you just a quick snapshot, particularly for those of you who are not familiar with biotech, kind of what happens and why we think we can make a difference. So, as I said, the big gap is trying to find funding to move products from the lab into a independent company. And some of you may know that NIH spends a lot of money on this, right? They are, through their SBIR program, helping young companies get funded and providing the early fuel that can do some of that de-risking. So some of that early preclinical work, toxicology, PK, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, those early steps necessary to de-risk the opportunity and to provide the funding necessary to get these products out of places like the University of Chicago, Northwestern, UIC. We've got all the raw material here. And trust me, for those of you who are not in the business and wondering why it all happens in Boston and San Francisco, I can assure you that the quality of the science here is every bit as good. And the egos of the people that are involved are usually better here. So there are some, for those of you who are in the investment space, there's some, in my view, really compelling reasons to come to Chicago. Not as heavily shopped as Boston and San Francisco. Prices for deals are lower. Time to get deals done is less. And I think the willingness of the tech transfer offices at the big academic medical centers can work with you in a way that's almost impossible in Boston or San Francisco. So forgive me, where's Mike Daly? Forgive me for trouncing on your city. Anyway, I don't think anybody's worried about San Francisco not having enough fuel to get some new therapeutics in the market. There's a lot going on out there. So I promised I'd try to give you some reasons why we think at Orange Grove we're making a difference. So we, instead of bringing a pocket of money, which we do have a little bit of that, but what we have a team of about 30 folks that are all drug development experts. So we have essentially all the people skills or all the people necessary to build a young biotech company within the organization. So one of the things you hear when you ask people about, well, why don't things work as well here in Chicago or in North Lafayette or in St. Louis? Why don't people in the Midwest, why aren't we able to kickstart the ecosystem and get things going more quickly? And I'd say there are usually two or three answers, right? The first one is it's money. That's kind of what you hear a lot about. Now, does anybody believe there's not enough money in Chicago to fund what we need to get done? I think pretty clearly the answer to that is no. There's plenty of money floating around here. It's tough to figure out a way to find it sometimes, but there's plenty of money. So the second is talent, and that's where I think we can bridge the gap. It's very common, I think, for people in the Midwest to say, well, I've got this great idea, I'm going to start this company, and all I need is a CEO, and that CEO will find all the people necessary to bridge that gap. And I can tell you that an ecosystem that's as immature as Chicago is, and not only Chicago, but as I mentioned, our headquarters is in Cincinnati, same problem there, St. Louis, places with really great science going on, but just not enough folks around to do the work. And so we think with our model where we actually bring a team of people to help energize and provide the necessary talent to get companies formed and get the beginning work done, get the products into the clinic, that we can make a real difference and start getting these therapeutics out more commonly, and in turn make a whole bunch of money for our investors and our team members. So I'll pause there.
Rich, thank you. I think we've covered some really interesting points, especially around funding for life science in Chicago. I was surprised when I moved here about the concentration of healthcare companies or life science companies, right? And it's Abbott, AbbVie, Astellas, Amgen all have offices, and that's just the letter A. So there's actually a lot going on, and universities are producing great talent. Where do you think we stand today on actually bringing capital and bringing talent to the city? I'm hearing of a few things popping up here or there, but where are we, and what else can this room do, for instance, to help advance the
I'm
city?
encouraged. I mean, I think there's a lot happening here. About 10 years ago, we formed a group here in Chicago called Chicago Innovation Mentors, which was a way to plumb those A companies, Astellas, Abbott, Takeda, others. And we've got about 200 volunteers that are providing mentorship to young biotech startups, not just biotech, biotech, medical device, diagnostics, the like. So I'm encouraged by the fact that that process has been underway for a while now, and I think is doing a good job at helping people understand what they need and accessing the talent necessary to make real progress in the development of new therapeutics. I think where we still fall short is that fundamental, so having lived in Boston for a decade, I'm not sure where you were prior, but it's all the corollary stuff that's really hard to find here. So in Boston, for instance, if you want a regulatory person that knows how to get early stage products approved for the FDA to start an investigational new drug, an IND approved, you can probably throw a rock out your front window and hit 12 of those. And that just doesn't happen as much here. It takes a lot more connectivity to find the right people. They exist here. And the wonderful thing about the ecosystem here is that we have a huge amount of people who have fled the bigs, so the Abbotts, the AbbVies, the Astellas, Takeda, et cetera, et cetera. So they're here, they're doing consulting work. Some of them made a lot of money already, so they're more interested in the impact they can have on patients than they are in making money. And so it's not a function of a lack of availability, but it does require I think groups like this to really make the connectivity work and to make sure that these young new organizations that are really coming up with incredibly exciting stuff. By the way, I'm old, as you can see. I've been doing this for more than 40 years now, and I've never been in a more exciting time in the life sciences space. There is so much cool stuff going on right now. I've got little kids still, high school junior twins that keep asking me, other than talk on the phone and go to meetings, what, Dad, do you really do for a living? And I also always try to explain to them how the level of innovation, the stuff that's going on right now in the space, I just can't imagine a more exciting time. So for those of you who have kids, which I am assuming there are quite a few in this crowd, they ought to be thinking about life sciences. They ought to be thinking about STEM and getting prepared, because the new stuff that's coming is really going to revolutionize the way people live and the way people are treated. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. Amit, would you like to give us an introduction as well as talk about exciting trends in healthcare technologies? What should investors in the room be thinking about or watching out for in healthcare technologies?
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Amit Aisola. I work with Wanjiang Healthcare Investments. I'm a managing director there. We're a Chinese company based in the suburbs of Chicago. We're actually in the automotive space. And we built an interesting investment model where we invest in areas outside of automotive with our excess cash flow. So for the last 6 years or so, we've been investing in digital health, and we've built a portfolio of about 30 companies. So most of our companies have a software component. We come in early for the most part, late seed rounds to Series A, so that's early stage investing, but we will stick with a company as it continues to grow. And we've written checks all the way through to the pre-IPO rounds. So in terms of what I'm focusing in on in 2022, I'm going to start off with where I began in 2016. So when I first joined Wanjiang, they gave me a clean slate. They said, look, just bring in any healthcare deals that you think are interesting, that are good value, companies that have a ton of potential. We'll take a look at those. I came in from a perspective of technology solves all problems, like a typical VC. And I couldn't have been more naive. Technology does not solve all problems, especially in healthcare. What I've learned in the last 6 years is healthcare is still fundamentally a human-to-human business. When people go to see their doctors, they want to talk to their doctor. When people are interacting with their nurses, they want to interact with their nurses. This is not like going to a bank or dealing with a bank app where you just have a few transactions to do. It's a pretty binary outcome. Healthcare involves interaction between humans. Over the last 2 years in particular, accelerated somewhat by COVID, we've really started focusing in on the decentralization of the delivery of healthcare, which is how do you deal with patients when they're outside of the hospital? How do you prevent them from going back to the hospital? So it's actually across two different approaches. Let's keep the healthy people healthy. If someone has actually been admitted to the hospital and then they get discharged, let's make sure they don't get readmitted. And we've been investing in a wide variety of technologies that touch a patient in skilled nursing facilities and other post-acute care facilities, patients at home. We've invested in administrative solutions that enroll people into Medicaid, for example, or Medicare, because if you don't have insurance, the likelihood that you get sick goes up because then you no longer have access to preventive care. But going back to my key point here is we're now investing in tech-enabled services companies. Companies that bring technology to the table, but they first build trust with the patient by having humans interact with them virtually. So the technology is still there, but interact with them virtually for the first week or month or 3 months, depending on the program. And these are solutions that are targeting Medicare patients, Medicaid patients, patients that have chronic illnesses like high blood pressure, diabetes, hypertension. We've even invested in a company that engages with the caregiver. So a caregiver is somebody who's taking care of somebody else at home who's sick. which is incredibly stressful for the caregiver. And a lot of times they actually just don't know how to take care of their parents, for example. But in each of these cases, it's the human engagement that is the most critical piece up front. So build the trust, have the patient interact with a clinician virtually, sometimes in person initially, and then let the technology take over. So yes, we're no longer investing in companies for the most part that have 80% gross margins that can triple or quadruple in revenue every single 6 to 12 months. Yeah, that's the sexy stuff, but we're no longer investing in those because the reality is those are the companies that aren't as effective when it comes to managing patients. The ones that are really effective are the ones that have the services, that bring the people to the table. They don't have as high a gross margin, for example. They may not scale quite as quickly, but they're the ones that are actually getting the job done.
Thank you, Amit. Really interesting and exciting developments, actually, to follow up on. My name is Julia Montrinipe. I've introduced myself yesterday, so I'll give you a very brief intro, and then actually talk about somebody who is not in the room and was working to be here. So I'm the founder and managing partner of Pace Healthcare Capital. We are an early-stage investment firm investing in healthcare tech and digital health based here in Chicago. And so we see actually many trends in healthcare tech and digital health that are similar to the life science industry, meaning for many of my investments, their customers are based in Chicago. There's a high density of large corporations, so CVS, Medline, hospitals that are based here, great universities that produce talent and innovation. So the fabric of entrepreneurship and startups we look at is very strong. The quality of the tech is extremely robust, as Eddie knows for having spent a lot of time around one of our investments. But what's missing is actually early stage capital. And therefore, we are trying to, number one, fill that gap to support our entrepreneurs with not only financial capital, but also human capital, help them get to the next level and scale. I would say it also actually just provides an environment for great valuations. I have a nosebleed looking at West Coast valuations. It's just what we see here is not necessarily cheap, it's just well priced. It is commensurate for the amount of risk we take. And we are sitting next to the customers, right? The companies that our investments are trying to sell their innovation too. So there's a lot to do around Chicago. I'll actually shift to, we've talked about health equity a little bit yesterday during the bus tour on the south side. I had a speaker, a panelist, who was supposed to come, and unfortunately she had a death in her family, so she's attending a funeral today. Her name is Dr. Cheryl Whitaker. She is an extraordinary woman, a physician, an executive. She was the founder and CEO of a business called Next Level Health. It's a managed care organization for Medicaid beneficiaries. And she did an amazing job at leveraging healthcare technologies to, number one, expand access, improve patient remote monitoring, decrease cost of care for an environment where the reimbursement is nowhere as high as for commercial insurances. It's a ratio of 1 to 5. But therefore, she had all incentives to really make things happen and did a fantastic job. The company was sold to Centene a little over a year ago. And she has a fantastic story as well to talk about what it's like to be a women entrepreneur, an African American, in a world where she had to raise capital at a number of occasions in this environment. So unfortunately, she can't be here today for the reasons I explained, but hopefully we'll get her to speak and talk about actually what is it we can do to leverage technologies to advance health equity. With this, I will actually pass the microphone to Mirjana, who I believe all of you know by now, who is an entrepreneur, has an exciting technology. So Mirjana, can you give us an introduction as well as talk about your exciting venture?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Mirjana Prokic, the founder of Hunger Global. And before many of you already know me, I'm very excited to be here. Chicago is a very special town for me. city in America. I would like to start what exactly Hunger is with a video. I don't know if Ines can show. This is a background that you can see what device we are creating, but video testimonial should be good to start all of this first.
It's amazing. This is so good. Because it feels almost like in a womb or something. How long was I?
25 minutes.
25 minutes?
Yeah.
I thought I got it when I wouldn't have invested if I didn't think I got it, but no, experiencing it like that, knowing where that's going to go.
Did you sleep? I didn't know I did. I fell asleep.
Did you?
I was like, okay, what happened to me? It's just something that you don't expect to happen.
Wow. I didn't actually want that to end. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, I mean, I haven't experienced anything like that before.
This is not only mechanically working, that the rocking motion helps your breathing. My breathing, my respiratory pattern, my in and expiration were synchronizing with the motion, because you feel the mechanical advantage of letting go if you would otherwise breathing against the resistance, and making use of a supported inspiration and take a deep breath in at the right moment.
This is a testimonial from our second prototype, and what we're building is the world's first forward incliner, which holds person in that prone position, which helps our lungs to oxygenate for at least 30% plus extra oxygen in our lungs. And one of the benefits, obviously, is the product is for long COVID symptoms, as well as sleep apnea, cystic fibrosis, and any other respiratory issues. And then on top of that is also sleep deprivation that we all experience because of high level of stress or musculoskeletal issues. And again, this position is something that addresses all of this, especially musculoskeletal issues. So we were talking about, especially Amit, and about human-to-human interactions between patients and medical staff. And what we decided to address is actually how to help medical staff to prevent their burnout so that they can be more fresh and focused when they are delivering their service to patients, and prevent deaths due to medical errors. And this is something that we were shocked, because we started first from, okay, we can go with this device as a Class A non-invasive medical device, so we don't have to go through all these approvals, FDA and similar. But then we said, okay, so throughout our journey of now 50 year, we found out many other benefits, and especially for respiration. So, and we said, okay, so holistic solution is here, which is all about helping people to fully decompress mentally and physically. And this physical element sometimes is missing when technology is only involved. And we wanted to bring these two together, because we can have Oura Ring. I see you're wearing one. We can have our tracking devices, and this is all is helping us to actually get informed decisions about what we need to do, but then what after? Where do we seek for other solutions? So we then found out that first go-to-market actually should be medical staff, because we research shows that 43% of US medical practitioners are ready to leave their work prematurely by 2025. Who's going to take care of patients? And a similar issue is also in the UK and around the world. It's 31% actually in total. So there is a big constraint on medical professionals, and the problem is they work shifts, and their sleep pattern and whole physical toll is actually very strong, and they only have 30 minutes of breaks every 6 hours. But how we can give them the most optimized rest that they can get because they can't get that on their chair or sofa or whatever, because their brain keeps going. So you cannot really decompress that. But also musculoskeletal issue is something that why they actually leave work much earlier, because they're tossing and turning patients all the time. So this is where our solution sits in and what we are addressing to start with. And then from all of this testing and building prototypes, and we actually started collaborating with universities early days, King's College London and Brunel University, and now we have trials. So now we have trials, clinical trials booked for King's College and Partners Lab, where they want to actually validate what we already did, because we included all existing research before we even started designing the product. So we did the other way around. So it's much easier and quicker to get all this validation. So here we are. Thank you.
I feel like there should be like, everybody get one, 2 sentences. What should we think about for what's your prediction by the next conference we have in the health area that will come true?
Do you want to start?
Quick prediction.
1 year?
Go ahead.
When we meet again next year, quick prediction. Like 2 sentences. 1 sentence.
You know, in biotech, we don't ever do years. We do decades, right?
What's going to happen next year?
What's going to happen between now and next year? Well, my prediction is that we will have at least one startup, new company formed in Chicago, and hopefully on the South Side.
That you'll be a part of?
That I'll be the CEO of. Yeah.
Oh, nice. CEO of, not just a part.
This is already happening, but I think within 12 months we'll see a lot more of this, and that's the whole notion of food as medicine, the linking between diets and health outcomes, and there are a lot of companies going after that space.
By the next conference, we will have in the market a software to diagnose sepsis extremely early in emergency rooms. Sepsis is the #1 cause of mortality in hospitals. It's also the #1 cause of malpractice lawsuits against emergency physicians, because it's sort of easy to go back and say, well, you missed it. It's so weak, it's impossible to tell when it's so early. The chief complaint of patients that die septic in the ER is belly pain, which can be anything. And we invested in a company that's now going through a process I cannot talk about, but by the next conference, we'll be out in the market with this exciting technology.
Great.
Yeah, same for me. The next conference, you all will hopefully have a chance to test Hunger in real, because what we are building doesn't exist. So it's very difficult to actually imagine what the device actually provides you. But hopefully those testimonial videos could give you some,
So I know we'll be in London.
Yes.
And New York. So first London, September 20th, 21st, so maybe prototype or?
We can definitely try the existing prototype, which is still manual, but the automated one we are developing now. So 6 months from now, we should have that. I'm saying 6 months. I'm giving more time, but probably will be in 4 months.
Investors
time,
like that if you do that.
So yes, we are we were very fortunate with grants, because again, being female entrepreneur, being single founder, doesn't matter my previous world of corporate experiences, etc., and my network, etc. It's very difficult to raise funds when you are having idea, plus it's hardware with enhanced with technology, and then start obviously selling. But the good thing is that we won 5 grants, and the latest one was last month from Mayor of London. So some angel investors as well, etc. So
but we're going to see you in Ohio.
Yeah.
And I just met with LaForce. He would like to have more production on the west side of Chicago, and he can write checks. So just saying.
Yeah. So
okay.
we can sit down, and I can give you a great pen.
So thank you. He needs to see a good plan with the pen, but we'll get it. I know you got it. Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.